All right, great. We're going to move right along then. Nope, went too far back. All right, so here's what's going to go on here. You're going to see the wheels turning on this. This is the first time I've ever looked at this section. So what you're going to do is you're going to hear my running monologue as to how I actually do these. And I think that a lot of my students like that because it provides them with some insight as to how I do it. All right, so number one. Now, here is what I see immediately. There is one of the things says, this means. Well, that would be an independent clause. Now, which destroys an independent clause? It would take what is otherwise an independent clause and make it a dependent clause. So there is some sort of independent clause issue running around here. Let's go figure it out. So some corals are fluorescent. Independent clause. This means that they will absorb one color of light and emit another, right? Well, so that would be joining two independent clauses with a comma, right? We cannot join two independent clauses with a comma. You are dead to me. Right, remember, by the way, little refresher, the way you can join two independent clauses. Independent clause, semicolon, independent clause, colon, then you can have an independent or dependent clause, independent clause, comma, then one of our fanboys, for and nor, but, or, yet, so, followed by an independent clause, or independent clause, m dash, independent / dependent clause. Now note, this is a really rare use of the m dash. They don't really test it here. When they're testing the m dashes, they're using them for the interrupting clauses generally. But like, this is grammatically correct if they decide to bring it up, right? So now this one would have comma and, right? Well, comma and is used to join two independent clauses. But we change this means to meaning. So we now have gotten rid of the second independent clause. So that doesn't work. So now we're down to B and D. Some of the corals are fluorescent, which it means. Like, no, that's nonsense. That's gibberish. The issue there is it. Like, what are we talking about with it? If it was just which means, that would be fine. But this is nonsense. So it's just D, meaning. All right. Moving right along. Question number 2. By the way, this is how I do these. I look at the answer choices, and based on the differences, I can just immediately know what it's asking me, right? So here, this is a pronoun antecedent question. What does that mean? Here's what pronoun antecedent means. That's just, what is this we have these pronouns. What is it standing in for? That's really all this is asking. So scientists have learned that shallow water coral fluoresces as part of a symbolic or beneficial relationship with algae living inside. Okay, what are algae living inside? I believe they are living inside the coral. But here it's corals. They even made it with an S. So the answer is them. Yep. All right, so now this is a combining sentence question. Combining sentence questions are like my least favorite questions. They're such a mess. I don't have like a nice rule for them, but I do have a guideline of like 7. I have 7 guidelines for this. 1, the answer has literally never had a semicolon, right? Like on all the versions of combining sentences, on all the tests, the correct answer has never had a semicolon. Number 2, be very, very cautious around comma and, like joining two independent clauses with comma and. Now, it has been correct, but it's very rare. Very, very rare. I used to tell people it was never comma and then it happened like once. Rule number 3. Now, even though I was telling people it was never comma and, the vast majority of them still got the question right on the August 2018 exam. Oh, I remember. Because of rule number 3, which is trust your gut. You shouldn't read the answer choice and go like, that's terrible. Why would anyone have ever done that to 2 perfectly good sentences? Like, just trust yourself. If you think it's awful, it's probably wrong. 4, pay attention to transitions. So there have been ones where they connect the two sentences with comma but the sentences don't actually contrast. Like, that's an incorrect transition. While they fixed the independent clause issue, they created a new one. 6, repetition. If you use someone's name like twice in 4 words, it's a giant red flag. Like, unless something, get rid of it unless everything else seems more wrong. 7, misplaced modifiers. We'll cover this later. Misplaced modifiers is actually its own question type. But they can crop up in here. And what a misplaced modifier is, in effect, is you have a description describing the wrong thing. Like, you put it in some place where it can't describe what it was supposed to describe. And 8, passive versus active voice. You want to avoid passive voice. What is passive voice? Excellent question. Passive voice is, active voice is when the subject is doing the verb. Like, the dog bit the boy. The action is biting and the dog is doing it, right? Passive voice is when the subject of the sentence is receiving the action. The boy was bitten by the dog. Well, biting is still the action, but our subject is the boy, and he's who's receiving the action. Yeah, these are the 8 things you want to consider when you're doing this. It's a mess. And this is the only one that's a hard and fast rule. Everything else is like guidelines. They're not going to get you the answer. They could eliminate answers. And that's really it. All of these just eliminate answers. None of them tell you what the right answer is. All right, now let's take a look. All right, so I'm looking at B. Algae, semicolon, happening through photosynthesis. The algae's production of oxygen and other products is needed by coral. Nope, semicolon. So actually, let me just reread the sentences. I realized I didn't read the original version. Okay, so now here I'm seeing comma and, right? Unless these are just awful, I'm getting rid of C, right? We have the comma and joining them. So let's take a look at these. So block for the algae, which through photosynthesis produce oxygen and other products that the coral need, or algae, the production of oxygen and other products the coral need coming from. All right, this is just wordy. Like, we use way more words than we need to. There's nothing like wrong with it, but it says the same thing as A in a much worse fashion. So the answer here is A. Let me just check that. Yes, it is A. Okay. All right. So now I take a look at 4. All right. I immediately identify this as an independent clause question. There is a mix of punctuation marks, so we are in independent clause land, the world's least popular theme park. So let's take a look. Do we have, step 1, do we have an independent clause to the left? This finding does not explain why corals in deeper water. No, that is not an independent clause, right? It does not explain why corals in deeper water do what. We're not done with that thought, right? So we do not have an independent clause to the left. You are gone. Now to the right, where sunlight is less intense, also fluorescence. So we have 0 independent clauses right now, right? So now let's see how we fix this. All right, so we have this comma here, right? What we're trying to say here is this finding does not explain why corals in deeper water also fluoresce, right? That is our full thought, and this is a little interrupting clause. So we need to get fluoresce in the same clause as the word water. Well, if we just remove the punctuation mark there, that doesn't do that. So D is gone. Now, here's the last step. We need to figure out how to separate that interrupting clause. Since we have the comma there, we need to also start with the comma. We can't start with an em dash and end with a comma. Now, if this was an em dash here instead of a comma, that would work. We just have to start and finish with the same one. Does anyone have any questions on anything I've discussed so far? Oh, I forgot one of these rules. Shorter is better. Sorry, we're just jumping back to this for a second. This is another rule for combining sentences. Shorter is better. It's not best, but if you have two answer choices and one, they kind of say the same thing and one just does it in far fewer words, that's probably right. And that's actually what we used to get through the last two answers. But does anyone have any questions on any of the strategies I've discussed so far, or any like particular fine point of the grammar rule? All right, moving right along. All right, so here we just have different words. It is a word choice question. So we need to figure out which one of these words is correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross this out, and I'm going to try and figure out what word would I put there if I was actually writing this sentence. They exposed a sample of coral to different color lights, finding that blue light, the most blank color of light in deep water, only reached the chlorophyll closest to the surface. So do you see how it says only reached, right? That is emphasizing off of this that like it would have been the most penetrative, right? Or it's the most something. It literally says most there. This one you don't really have enough context to do it this way. You are going to have to like kind of try and plug them in. I don't love doing that, but there's not enough context. But three of these words make no sense. Lavish is like, if something's lavish, it's like fancy and rich. No. Generous, like, that just makes no sense whatsoever. The color is not like giving. Overflowing makes no sense. I don't know what overflowing with color would be. So it's abundant. There's a lot of blue water. All right, cool. Another answer that could have worked was penetrative. But like that would mean something entirely different, but from context that also would have worked. But you'll note that that wasn't an answer choice. All right, 6. Oh, this is another independent clause question. I see a colon, I see a comma, I see an em dash, right? So we're in independent clause land. Now, the team therefore hypothesized, right? That is not an independent clause. Like that does not. So actually, it can be an independent clause. It kind of depends. The team hypothesized could be an independent clause. Now, a lot of times you'd want to answer like, well, what did they hypothesize? This one's a little up in the air. I can't definitively say it's not an independent clause yet. I need to see what else is going on. Oh, but all right, so we can still get rid of this. I can't say whether or not it's an independent clause, but the word that is a relative pronoun, right? The word that starts a subordinate clause, and it is modifying, in this case, it's modifying the word hypothesis. It's answering what? So you are not going to have you're not going to have a semicolon, a colon, followed by the word that. That's just not how it works. Like you don't do comma that. You don't do em dash that. Like the word that is not going to have a comma before it. It could have a comma before it if there's an entire interrupting clause, like, if it was like hypothesized, of course, that. But in that case, the commas are there because of that stupid phrase, not because of the word that. But like, if you ever see a punctuation mark immediately before the word that or immediately after the word that, it is almost certainly wrong. Oh, cool. That is A, B, and C. D is the answer. Putting a punctuation mark after the word that, well, the rest of this is explaining what that is, right? Like, that's the explanation coming off of the word that, so we can't have a punctuation mark there either. So D is our answer. Boom roasted. Next up. Which choice provides an accurate interpretation of the graph? Okay, graph question. When I do graph questions, step one, before I'm even reading this, I am checking out, like, what are all the parts of the graph? All right, this is survival percentage. Note, if this is survival percentage, the death is the missing part. This is months. These are the two different type of whatever, however you pronounce that. And then this is the long-term survival effects. Okay, cool. So now let's take a look at the sentence. Around the 19-month mark, the non-fluorescent whatever had dwindled to about blank of their original amount, right? So this is asking how much was left, right? How much was left in month 19 for the non-fluorescent? By the way, me circling these things isn't for your benefit. Like, it will help you see them while we're doing this, but this is how I do the actual test. I often, well, used to before COVID, I used to show up every year and take one SAT and one ACT in person with all of you guys. You know, the joke was, I was playing 30-year-old at the test center. All my friends kept wishing me good luck with college. When I handed in my test booklet, it was a disaster, right? Like my pencil would have gone through pages, right? Like, you don't get style points for handing in a clean test booklet. Right. Mark it up. Don't be ginger with it. They're not going to yell at you if your test booklet's falling apart at the end. Now, you do need to turn in the complete test booklet. It can't be missing a page, but like, you need to just mark it all up. Like, me circling these things is me making sure I'm getting the right things. So we're dealing with month 19, and we're dealing with the non-fluorescent, right? So it's the black line. So how much is left? Oh, I skipped a question, didn't I? Same type of question. Sorry about that. We're an 8 here. So 20% is left. Yep. But we do need to go back and actually answer questions. Which choice provides an accurate interpretation? After 12 months, so we're on 12 months, the fluorescent, so now we're dealing with this bar, the lighter bar, were blank, but only 80% of the non-fluorescent survived, right? Well, was it deteriorating? No, it's exactly the same. Was it thriving? I mean, I guess it's exactly the same. Like, typically thriving would imply an increase, but I can't, like, just say it's wrong yet. Like, it could be thriving, like, that'd be a weird answer, but it's not, like, so wrong I can get rid of it. They were higher in number. No, that is absolutely incorrect. And they were at the lowest percent, absolutely incorrect. So it's thriving. Thriving is like a weird way of saying it, I guess, because they were just the same. They were doing equally as good as before. But, it's as close as we're getting. All of the A, C, and D are all very wrong. Number 9. Ooh. So this is one that I think it might be a logical comparison question, but I actually can't tell. Or it could be a pronoun specificity question. So the reason why it might be a pronoun specificity question is the way you identify those is you look at them and ask, like, okay, are any of these way more specific than the others? However, we are also using the word like, which means it could be a logical comparison question. I actually can't tell you without reading it. So let's read it. These results suggest that the red-orange glow of deep-water corals might indeed be a symbiotic survival mechanism, just like, okay, this is logical comparison. So the fact that there's the word like and the word those is exemplary of logical comparison. Just in case everyone knows, here is the idea behind logical comparison, because this is definitely a less asked question type. Logical comparison is when you have to make it crystal clear that you are comparing the same thing on both sides of a comparison. For example, what can you say? You can't say my digestive system is faster than a lizard. You've just compared your digestive system to the land speed of a lizard. What can you say? My digestive system is faster than a lizard's digestive system, or my digestive system is faster than that of a lizard. That being used as a relative pronoun, standing back in for digestive system. Now, that and those, the difference between that and those is singular versus plural. Okay? So now we have some sort of issue with that, but we still need to untangle it. These results suggest that the red-orange glow might be a symbiotic survival mechanism, just like, all right, so here's what's going on, right? What are we comparing here? Well, on this side, we're talking about the glow being a survival mechanism. So it would be just like the sun blocking glow. Here we've made it clear we're talking about the glow on both sides. Results is plural, those is plural, and B gets rid of the logical comparison to the point where that's just getting rid of the lizard's digestive system. So our answer there is C. It also happens to be the most specific, which is usually a good thing. Not what this question turns on, though. This is a logical comparison question, not a pronoun specificity question, but it is also nice if we're real specific. Now, does anyone have a question on logical comparison? I understand this is probably a question type. This is a question type I could see you guys having not gone over. Does anyone have a question on what I was just talking about? Okay, moving right along. Number 10. The writer wants to add the following sentence to the paragraph. The best placement for the sentence. Okay, so sentence placement question. They began, all right, so they began by placing this thing that expressed a red green protein into an aquarium that was exposed through light. All right, so now here are my guidelines on how to do sentence placement. 1, if it has a transitional phrase in it, let that help guide you, right? If it says however, well, it better contrast the sentence before it. 2, by the way, when you guys get these wrong, in my experience, this is most often what you've done. So let's say you have idea A, idea B, idea B, idea D, and we're trying to stick idea C somewhere, right? What a lot of you guys do is you put idea C in between these B's, right? It makes idea C makes perfect sense following idea B. But now we're interrupting this discussion, and we can't do that. It would need to go here. All right. 3, and this is very relevant for what we're doing. Let vagueness be your guide, right? Do you see how this starts with they began by, well, who is they and what did they begin? It should come right after an explanation of who they are and what we were beginning. If I, not looking at the paragraph, my guess is they're they did the experiment. Here's how they began. That's kind of what we're going to be looking for, but not necessarily. We'll see. And then 4. Now, this is the most obnoxious one. They do not do it very often. It's always tricky when they bust it out. But if you both use a word in a paragraph and define the word in the same paragraph, the definition must come first. It might not come right before it, but it needs to come before it, right? That's just the rule. You don't need to define a sentence. You don't need to define a word to use the word, but if you both use and define it, that it has to come definition first. There's one test where it's the sentence they want you to place uses the word virtual pitch, and you have to stick it all the way at the end because they define the word virtual pitch in sentence 6, right? And that's like really the only it could make sense at a bunch of places, but because the definition was in 6, that's why it has to be placed at sentence 7. So, but let's see what's actually going on with this. All right, so now we want to evaluate where it could go. So before sentence 1, all right, so the team therefore hypothesized this. To test this hypothesis, no, this is directly leading from there. And this is about to explain the experiment that we are going to begin. Which is not A. To test this hypothesis, the team conducted a 2-year experiment that compared the survival of fluorescent and non-fluorescent specimens from the genus, blah, blah, blah. All right, so this is what they said they were going to do. After 12 months, okay, I think we found, I believe we found a massive gap, and this is where it's going to go, right? We went from this is what they're going to do to 12 months later, and this starts with they began by doing this. This sentence is the natural link between these. This is how they were going to test the hypothesis. This is what they did after 12 months. The answer there is B. Moving right along. Transition question. So here's the deal with transition questions. Here's Jason's 3 transition question tricks. They're good ones. Pay attention. 1, it is never similarly, likewise, or by the same token. I have checked every single released SAT since 2015. There's like 25 or 26 of them. Those words have been wrong 100% of the time they have appeared. If you see them, it's not the right answer. 2, if you have 2 transitional words that mean the exact same thing, well, like they can't both be right, so they're both wrong. Like if you see like thus and therefore, right? Thus and therefore are both cause and effect. They would both have to be wrong. Another little trick is, so people are really exceptionally bad at thinking in thus and therefore. It's just something I've discovered. Like for whatever reason, me too, but like I'm bad at thinking in terms of that. Here is a much simpler way to figure out if you can use thus or therefore. If you flip the order of the sentences and join them with the word because, it'll become really clear if you can use thus or therefore. Now I'm going to explain that thought because that probably meant nothing to you, right? Like, let's say the sentence was like, the dog bit the boy, therefore he was hurt, right? Well, if we put he was hurt because the boy bit the dog, right? Like, okay, well, that makes sense. We could use therefore, right? Now, that one was pretty straightforward, but sometimes you're just going to run into these brick walls of weird clauses. Taking the second sentence, putting it first, and then reading through with the word because will really simplify thus and therefore. And last but not least, for tricks here, transitional phrases are always relating the sentence before to the sentence it's in. That's just how they work. So like, let's say you have, like a sentence ends here and then you have da, comma, however, comma, da, right? Well, the word however is not relating the 2 sides of the sentence. It is still the transition from the sentence before to the sentence it's in. I don't care if the transitional phrase is the last word. It's the sentence before to the sentence it's in. Slight exception. If it follows a semicolon, it actually is internal clauses, but I don't think I've seen them do that before. Or if they have done it like once. So unfortunately, none of those tricks apply, but like they're good to know. So what are we actually doing? Well, we need to read the sentence before and the sentence it's in, get the main ideas, and ask ourselves what the relationship is. So The researchers hope their findings can be used to improve this. Some plans propose moving shallow water coil. All right. All right, I'm gonna need to look up what on earth their findings are. We're gonna take a step back and look up what their findings are because that is not clear. These results suggest that, all right, so what were the findings? The findings were that the glow was a survival mechanism. Okay, that's the findings. Researchers hope that that finding can be used to improve coral conservation. Some plans involve moving them to deep water, but this study suggests that without the right fluorescent pigments, those coral might not survive relocation. Okay, so this is actually an example of using the finding to improve an existing plan. That is, for example, that's the relationship, right? If the finding is we need those phosphorescent pigments to improve plans, well, this is using that knowledge to improve a plan. Whew, exhale. Number 12, independent clause question. How do I know it's an independent clause question? Semicolon, colon, yeah. Semicolon, colon, right? We have that mix of punctuation marks. So you've heard me say it like 5 times now, but repeat with me. How do we start? Let's check to the left and see if there's an independent clause. There is absolutely not an independent clause. It's ending with the word for. I just already know that. But let's read it for the sake of thoroughness and to make sure Jason, who's literally never seen this question before, doesn't embarrass himself. By the way, for those of you who just joined, the reason why I'm doing it like that is because a lot of my students have specifically said they find it valuable if they see me thinking it through like I'm doing it for the first time. Because you're hearing my running monologue on how I do these. So in today's marketplace, there is a growing demand for, no, absolutely not. That's not an independent clause. So since we know that's not an independent clause, what can we get rid of? We can get rid of this because the semicolon requires independent clauses on both sides. And we can get rid of A because the colon requires an independent clause to the left. All right, we're at 50-50. Now, do we have an independent clause to the right? Environmentally friendly business practices. No, we have 0 independent clauses, right? If we change that to a comma, we will still have 0 independent clauses. The answer is D. Now, here is, though, a little bit of another way that you could have gotten there. I call this the preposition trick, but let's take a prepositional phrase, right? The Duke of York, right? So what are prepositions? Prepositions are words that express the relationship between two things. Examples of the ones you really need to know: of, at, on, by, for, from, like, as, with, to, those types of words. So of is our preposition. Of York is our prepositional phrase. Duke is the object. He is the person who is of York. Places you should not have punctuation marks: there and there. All of these need to exist in the same clause, right? So to the extent that for environmental friendly businesses is a prepositional phrase, right? Putting any punctuation mark there is also wrong. Or putting any punctuation mark there because demand is the object of that preposition. One slight exception to what I told you about that, the preposition trick with the punctuation marks, just like with the word that, you can end up with one if we put a whole interrupting clause between, the Duke, comma, of course, comma, of York. Terrible writing, but not grammatically incorrect. I don't think I've ever seen them test that, but I just want you to be on alert. All right, 13. At this point, the writer wants, all right, so this is a revision question. We haven't gotten to any of these yet, which is a little surprising because recently revision questions where they give you some sort of goal have been 25% of the test. And we're just getting to our first one at question 13. Maybe it's back heavy, but really important you know how to do these. So here's how I explain the strategy. You need laser focus on what is this actually asking me to do, right? And I know you need to answer the question they've asked you and not one of your own creation. Now, I know you might be thinking, but Jason, why would I answer a question they didn't ask? I don't know, but you guys do it all the time. It's not what's most relevant. It's not what's most specific. It's not what has the best information. It's literally whatever they're asking you. And it's really important that you think about it like that, because sometimes the thing you need to put in sounds real stupid. There's one ACT version of this question where I had to add the words brownish and fuzzy because it asked me to soften the language. Why would I ever put that in a formal essay? I shouldn't. But the goal was soften the language, so that was the answer. Now let's actually see what's going on here. So the writer wants to present an argument that will be refuted, right? Okay, so we need to look at the next part of the sentence and set up the argument we're about to knock down. Small businesses also stand to gain by going green. A 2014, blah, blah, blah. All right, so it seems like the argument that we need to set up is that small businesses do not, in fact, gain. Yeah, that seems right? That's where we are. So although there is limited evidence that greening initiatives increase employee morale, well, no. When on earth are we talking about employee morale? No. Despite incentives offered by the federal government, this has absolutely nothing to do with the federal government. While some claim only large corporations can invest. Oh yeah, that's what it is, right? That's what we're refuting, because it's talking about the benefits of small businesses. Now, for the sake of completion, I would go ahead and read the last one. To be clear, I would do that when I was taking the test just to make sure I didn't derp real hard. Derp is the word I use for having a brain fart. I just find it crass to say that, so I use the word derp instead. As companies and individuals become increasingly concerned with that is not an argument we're refuting. The answer is C. 14. I think this is a logical comparison question. I see than, which is a comparative word. I literally see the word compared, and I see, yeah, this is almost certainly another logical comparison question. So let's take a look. A 2014 University of Arkansas, did I say Arkansas the first? I really hope I didn't. A 2014 University of Arkansas study found that the benefits of environmental initiatives were actually higher for small businesses than for Fortune 500 companies. Yeah, do you see how we do not complete the comparison? We are comparing the benefits. It looks like we're comparing the benefits. No, actually we're not. No, we're not. Because the word for is in fact standing in for the rest of that idea. Well, it could be. Let's see what we're dealing with, right? But we need to make it crystal clear we're talking about the benefits. The benefits for small businesses, right? Now, theoretically, this could work. Because the word for would be standing in for the same idea. I'm not in love with that. Not in love with that, but it could work. Than the initiatives. No, we're not comparing the initiatives. We're comparing the benefits. You're dead to me. So now we're higher for small businesses. The benefits of the environmental initiatives were actually higher for small businesses than compared to the benefits of Fortune 500 companies. Oh, that's so obnoxious. Oh, that looks so right and it's so wrong. Here's why this is wrong. It looks like we're talking about the benefits, but this is the benefits of these initiatives, not the actual benefits of the corporations, right? And what do I mean by that? So this says the study found that the benefits of environmental initiatives were actually higher for small businesses than, so this would be higher for small businesses compared to the benefits of the companies, not compared to the benefits of the initiatives of the companies. It's so subtle. Oh, that's gross. I hate it. than. Okay, well, that's even removing the word for, so we have absolutely no referent back. I don't love it, but A is the best. This is a really hard question. I could see most people, even after identifying it, putting C. This is a very, very difficult question. But for the reasons I explained, the answer is A. Does anyone have any questions on that one? Like, I appreciate how obnoxious that is. Okay, moving right along. 15. All right, so like I said, we have another revision question. Oh, and we have another revision question after. Like I said, there's usually like 11 of those, and we've seen one so far, so we probably have a lot coming. Which choice provides the most effective transition from the previous paragraph? Now, here's what's relevant from this. It wants our focus back, right? Like, it's not like it doesn't have to, touch on both a little bit, but our main focus is backwards to the previous. It doesn't say the effective transition to this paragraph, it's from the previous paragraph. It's a very fine distinction, but it's actually very important for answering these questions. Our main focus is here. So, measures to reduce consumption can help small businesses both directly by lowering costs and raising revenues, and indirectly by attracting new customers and even employees. Founded in 1976, no. So blank has succeeded improving its bottom line. All right, so we need to refer back to somehow the ways that it can, ways it could help, right? Yeah, so all right. The sentence before is specifically talking about ways it could help, right? So we need to refer back to ways it could help. Well, like, no, the fact that they service motorhomes is not, we don't care. We do not care how big the staff is. The answer is D. It says one such business, and the such business meaning one of the businesses that benefited. That's like really the only thing the answer could be. The others are so wrong. But you would probably want to, and then literally it says, it succeeded improving the bottom line, which finishes the comparison back. Which choice best maintains the style and tone? So here's the deal with style and tone. Style is saying the thing in a similar fashion. Like what would be saying something in the same style? All right, so here's an example from the test that they did once. Style is, all right, so actually here's how I'll explain it. Style is a matter of saying the same thing in the same way. So like you'll see a lot in jokes. I don't know why this is the example that's coming to my mind, but like there was this Stephen Colbert joke from a long time ago. It said, the net worth of the average American is, the net worth of the average congressman is $1.1 million, whereas the net worth of the average American is $0.0 million. Well, that's saying 0.0, like obviously that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you say it like that? Well, stylistically, it was matching the 1.1. It was expressing the idea in the exact same fashion. So that's style. Now, tone is like, how are we saying it? Tone relates to how are we saying it? Are we being like very strong? Are we being dramatic? Whatever. So we're looking to maintain the style and tone. Indeed, AJ has saved, oh no, so there it is, up here, by burning. All right, so this is a relatively formal essay. It's not the world's most formal essay, but like, let's get rid of anything that's informal. Chucking it, junking it, and tossing it are all informal. Our answer is C. Boom. 17. I am not sure what this is asking. I think this is shortest is best. Shortest is best is an actual question type. If you have 4 answer choices that all say like basically the same thing and one is much shorter than the others, it's the shortest. B is not so much shorter than the others that I can say this is that type of question. It looks like it, but I actually need to read what's going on. So indeed, AJ's has saved a total of more than Yeah, okay. So all of these say the exact same thing. But this is just like by far the shortest way of saying it. Like by leaps and bounds, that's the most efficient way of expressing that idea. So that's the answer. This is absolutely a shortest is best question. Yeah, because all of them do say the same thing. It's just not they're just using unnecessary words to do it. 18. Okay, so for those of you who are left, is there any, before I just keep running through this, is there any like specific question type you would like to address? All right, I'm just gonna keep running through it. 18. But, whereas, transcendentalist without the comma. Okay, I've got nothing. Could be I've got nothing. Let's actually read the sentence. While most dental offices rely on wasteful disposable products. So this is a dependent clause. Transcendentalists, however. Oh, I didn't even see the however there. All right, so we're removing the however from one of these. Okay, so this is already a dependent clause, right? And it's already a contrasting clause. Having the word however there is redundant. Like we said, while most dental offices rely on them, like that is already establishing a comparison's coming. That is redundant, so A is out. You cannot use the word, so do you see how that comma is there? That comma has to be there, right? Well, comma but is one of the fanboys. If you do comma but, you must have two independent clauses, and we do not have two independent clauses. So that's gone. Whereas is gibberish. While most do this whereas the other, like that's nonsense. So our answer is just D. We have this little introductory clause that establishes the contrast, and then we talk about the main thrust of the sentence. Boom. All right, so 19. Which choice results in the most effective transition to the next sentence? So again, do you see how it transitioned to the next sentence? As opposed to the last one, we're looking back. This one, our main focus is forward. So let's take a look. So the founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson. Weird that the founder is not named AJ. The founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson, estimates that the company's green reputation has increased its customer base by at least 17%. Oh, yeah, okay. I could see that happening in Berkeley, California. Neither here nor there. So the sentence ahead is talking about it increasing customers, right? So we want that to set up increasing customers, right? So this says they can reward, so here, which can yield tangible benefits. Well, that could work. Increasing your customer base certainly seems like a tangible benefit. I'm leaving it. Green initiatives can also strengthen a company's image, rewarding loyal customers. So no, the next sentence is about increasing the amount of customers. So it's not about customers who are already loyal. You're gone. Although image isn't everything, not at all what we're looking for to set up the next sentence. And the next sentence is not about new employees. So our answer is just A. Exhale. All right. 20. All right. Independent clause question. Let's figure out where our clauses are. The founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson, estimates, right? The founder of AJ's, Bob Anderson, estimates most certainly is not an independent clause. C is gone. Now, I'm actually going to shortcut part of this. So here's a trick when you have just commas running around. They like doing this. So every verb is required to be in the same clause as the thing doing it, right? Like you have to have your subject verb pairs. You can't have a verb like chilling by itself in a clause, right? So here, estimates, that's a verb. Who's doing the estimating? Oh no. I'm going to take a look at something else here because traditionally you would never put the comma there. But like if they're asking something really awkward, you could. I'm going to read the rest of the sentence. Okay, well, first off, never mind. There's the comma between the word estimates and that is strictly wrong. So now we're down to those two. Now, here's my thought process here. Oh, God. All right. This is almost completely against a rule I normally teach people. They're being obnoxious with you. This is like a hard question because, so traditionally, there's the title name rule, right? So if you are using both a person's name and a person's title, if the title comes first, no commas. The police officer John went to the store. If the name comes first, it's John, comma, a police officer, comma, went to the store. Now that is how it works 99% of time on this test. That is not how it works here, though. And the reason why it's not how it works here is, so normally you would never do comma Bob Anderson, comma, right? Because Bob Anderson is the person. And he is the one who is in fact doing the estimating, right? But unless you make this the name an interrupting clause, you have the phrase the founder of AJ's doing absolutely nothing. Like it serves no like it's just yeah, basically like this is just structured incredibly poorly otherwise. So you must have the comma there to fix what they fix the train wreck they made in the first half of the sentence. You know, an English teacher might start talking to you about restrictive clauses, but I'm an SAT tutor. So that's what's happening there. So the answer to this one is A. 21. Which choice provides a second example, right? Another revision question. We got that which choice. Which choice provides a second example that is most similar, right? So we look at what the first example is and we match the first example. So what is the first example? They have increased their customer base. It is an example of a benefit, right? Okay. Anderson ensures they stay in compliance. That is not a benefit. In yet another example of he has incorporated oil tanks, not a benefit. Some local chambers of commerce offer, not a benefit. Oh, and they attract new customers. That is a benefit. Boom. This is a commonly confused word question. We just have 4 words that sound similar, although I don't know anyone who's ever confused receptive with perspective. Neither here nor there, but companies with eco-friendly policies appeal not only to environmentally conscious clientele, but to, okay, so the one we're looking for is perspective, A. Sorry, prospective. Nope, prospective, said that wrong. Prospective means one's coming in the future. Like if you have a prospective client, that is a possible client. Perspective is how you see things, which doesn't make any sense there. And receptive means you're open to things, and respective, I'm not even gonna get into it. Respective is not correct there. 23. Ooh, all right. 23 is a subject-verb agreement question. I'm gonna show you a cool trick. I haven't read this. The answer's C. How did I know that? Let me just make sure it is. Yeah, it is C. All right. There's a trick with subject-verb agreement questions that you can just do, and it works 98% of the time. I think out of this trick has worked for subject verb agreement questions 98 out of 100 or something crazy. All right, so first off, what is subject verb agreement? Okay, subject verb agreement is the idea that if you use a singular verb, you need a singular version of a noun. If you use a plural noun, if you use a singular noun, you need a singular verb. If you use a plural noun, you use a plural verb, right? It's the difference between he is and they are, right? Here are the pairs you need to know. Is, are, was, were, has, have, and then, so a regular verb with an S, like sings and sing, okay? So those are like the pairs you need to know. Note ed past tense endings. Those are both singular and plural. Like they can go either way. Right. So now, how did I glance at that and know it was a singular versus plural question? Here's how you know something's a singular versus plural question. These are in the same tense. One is singular, is, and one is plural, are, right? So as soon as you see that, like, okay, there's a singular versus plural issue I need to resolve, right? Now, actually, interestingly, where this one's a little bit different is normally you're also going to get a bunch of tenses. Like normally you'll see this as like was, is, has, and were. Like that's a much more common way of seeing this rather than seeing is 3 times and the word are once. But as soon as you've identified singular versus plural, right? Well, if there's 3 going one way and 1 going the other way, it is virtually always the odd man out. Like I said, twice out of like all of the tests, this didn't work. So you shouldn't turn your brain completely off, but follow this unless like you have a really good reason not to. So singular, 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 it's the plural. And that actually does work on this question. But for the sake of completion, let's actually figure out what is placed. So his Moscow School of Management, Sokolov in Russia, features a 2-story. Oh, okay. So this is awkwardly structured. The things being placed are the prisms, and it's coming afterwards, and that is deeply strange. But it is the prisms, which is why we need the plural. Exhale. All right, so we have 4 minutes left in the lesson. This is I'm going to keep going, but like this is kind of a speak now or forever hold your peace if you have something you want me to tell you. All right. 24. So Gregory neighborhood. Oh, by the way, so don't do what I'm doing. Like you're seeing me literally jump from question to question. I work with these tests 20 hours a week for the last like 5 years. I have this power. You don't. But what you should be doing, by the way, is I don't want to build bad habits. What you want to be doing is you want to be skimming until you get to the question, answer the question, then go back to skimming until you get to the next one. Do not just jump from question to question. I have this power. You do not have that power, so just don't build a bad habit. Another of Ajay's projects, the Francis A. Gregory Neighborhood Library in Washington, D.C., features exterior walls that we have a mix of punctuation marks. They're going in different places, commas. We have an independent clause question, right? Well, guess what? Gregory Library features exterior walls that resemble. That is not an independent clause. Nope. So that resemble a tilted checkerboard, alternating. So this would be an independent clause when we get to the end of the phrase tilted checkerboard. Alternating clear and opaque squares, right? Ooh, I see what they did. Alternating clear and opaque squares create. Okay, so this is also an independent clause, right? Like the alternating squares create a pattern. So we have 2 independent clauses. The only thing here that can join 2 independent clauses is that colon, right? So that is why D is our answer. Next question. Which of the following? All right, we have like 1 minute left. I'm not diving into a main topic. Let's take a look at this. This very, very much looks like a shortest is best question where the answer is going to be A, but like we actually need to read it. For each project, Ajay reviews extensive research about the local where population. All right, so this just says he reviews extensive research. This says reviews and examines. That's redundant and unnecessary. Reviews a lot of extensive. A lot and extensive mean the same thing, unnecessary. Examines and reviews mean the same thing, not necessary. Our answer is A. Boom. So weird. 27. 27 appears to be a tense question, but it could be subject-verb agreement because had and with an ed would go both ways. So I'd actually need to read the sentence. This one could be both because it's had with an ed ending, which can be singular or plural. And this would be singular, this would be singular, this would be singular. So it's either a subject-verb agreement question where that's the answer, or we actually have to figure out what tense is going on. I'm thinking it's a tense question, though. I'm really thinking. He considers the local government structure various databases provide. So we are in the present tense, right? The databases provide for each project he reviews. We are firmly grounded in the present tense. That's gone. That's gone, right? That is not present. That is not present. Okay, and now that had's gone, we know this is a tense question. So he considers the local government structure. He is considering. No, this is just in regular present tense. It's not like this gerund form. It's not in the present progressive, which even should have the word has anyway. Our answer is A. All right, so it's been great, and you guys have a great day.
Okay, so thanks for watching, and please remember to contact us at info@embracetutoring.com to set up any personalized private tutoring sessions you would like. Stay tuned for future videos, and best of luck with your studies. We definitely encourage you to visit our Instagram as well as TikTok pages if you have any questions along the way. Take care, guys. Best of luck with your studies.